Hello, hello. All right, all right. Yes, I'm coming to you on video. Some of you know that I had a very brief hospitalization this past weekend. I guess all of you know it now since I've said it. It's not serious. They did a thing, and I'm fine. If it was serious, I would probably tell you. I have to practice transparency because I'm a very closed and private individual, and I don't like people all that much. Even the people that I like, I can only tolerate so much. And so, one of the things that I've been trying to do over the past few years is practice transparency. And I've decided, there are a few areas in my life that I could loosen up a bit on and be a little bit more transparent. Health is one of them because we all have health and we're all going to die. And it seems like it might actually be a benefit to other people who have this openness problem. That is to say, they can't open up. And I think that talking about health is actually healthy for a community because people go through all kinds of private things that they think are happening just to them. They think something's wrong with them or something's weird about them because they never hear anyone else talking about it. So, I just want to let you know you're not alone. Shit happens. And so I'm talking about it. There's so much of my life that I don't talk about. There's no need for anyone, even the people who know me, to pretend that they know me. you don't know me. My wife comes the closest maybe to being able to know me, and she doesn't know me. There's a lot about me that I think she doesn't even want to know. Andrew is my oldest friend, and I mean old. He's so old. We've been friends for a very, very long time. He comes very close to knowing me. There are people that I like a lot, but I'm not known by a lot of people, and I wonder even if I know myself sometimes. And so, just because I am transparent about some things in some domains, it doesn't mean you know me. Don't even bother pretending that. And I'm probably never going to be transparent enough for anyone to actually know me because I'm still, at the heart of it, very private, very reclusive, and I don't like you all that much. It's not you. Excuse me. It's not you. It's me. You see me on video. Occasionally, I might glance at the camera. It's there. I hate doing video, so I hope the audio sounds good. But am I practicing maybe a new format for the next season? I don't know. Stuff happens. I change things up from time to time. It's hard to do what I do and completely ignore YouTube. And my preference would be to completely ignore YouTube, but that's not how the world works. So I've tried to do video from time to time. And for me, anything that I do has to be sustainable. It has to be sustainable when I'm busy. It has to be sustainable on a near weekly basis. It's got to be something that I can do without it costing me too much of my time and attention. I don't have a lot of that. There are other things, believe it or not, that I would rather do than this. And if you don't know that about me, it's because you don't know me. but I do think that this is important. And I think it's important enough to do what I can to get as much reach as I can in this format without doing too much to try to get an audience on purpose, because I don't really want a large audience. I would rather it be a slow burn over time and people just discover it. And that's what happens. People discover things. Since we're talking about formats, I might even end up going back to WordPress at some point, because as much as I hate to admit it, it's just a better platform. It's a better platform. I've worked on WordPress professionally. It's done great when you have an expensive enough plan, and so sometime over the course of the next year, I'm going to build a new site and move back to WordPress, where all of this started for me, and I think that's where it's all going to end for me. And so my time with Squarespace is inside of a year. You can start counting now. And if it wasn't for the fact of being busy, I would say it's inside of 3 months, but that's not going to happen. So there's that. And then finally, hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Skeptics and Seekers Sunday Sermon. This is your host, David Johnson. We're going to do a little bit of a supplemental. I mean, I guess it's a show, but it's going to be short. I have a long write-up, and off the back of that, I'm going to do a short show. And I might not even post the write-up until next week sometime, because I'm going to start a new page. I've been going all summer with one page, and it has been the Summer of Morality, and all of my shows and write-ups have been overloading that one page. So I'm sick of that, and we've got a finale to do. It was supposed to be done yesterday, but circumstances, so hopefully we'll get that done by the end of this week, sometime in there. I have mentioned to Brian Y that I would like to do another show, just a season wrap with Brian Y, because Brian Y is the best wrap-up summarizer of anything that I've ever known. He's very good at that sort of thing. In fact, he's better than me. He doesn't need me to do a wrap-up show. I am in his way. So I will be in his way for the wrap-up this year. If it sounds like things are happening outside of my door that I can't filter out, it's because it is. Don't worry about it. So, okay. Little bit more before we jump into this very short show. So with the new site, I'm going to do a new blog post, and it's going to be the Summer of Morality finale, and I am going to post the write-up on that finale page, and I will of course post the show on that finale page. If we do video, which I will post that on the finale page. I will post the post-season wrap-up, assuming that Brian Y actually agrees to do it, on that finale page. And then all of the shows that I do while I'm on break, because when I'm on break, I still do shows. They're just shows that I do while I'm on break. Don't try to understand it. It's just what it is. And I will be on break for a little while because I am tired. I did promise that I would do some kind of ebook of all of the write-ups, so I'll put them all together. I know they've been hard to follow the way I've been doing them so far, and that'll be a free download for people. I just have to figure out how to do a download on this platform. I'll figure it out. Yeah, I'll figure it out. So that's going to happen. That might take another couple, 3 weeks, because I have to go through and just kind of lightly, or in some cases heavily, edit all of the write-ups, and I have not even begun that job. So it's not going to be a perfect job, but it'll be, at least I will have looked over it and hopefully corrected some of the egregious things in there so that it's readable. I'm just going for readable. I'm not really going for publishable. I hate editing, so if anyone wants to take up that job, I can do it. But uh, I um, I will get that out there as well. So all of our comments and so forth will be on this new page for the next few weeks until I decide that it's time for the new season. And there will likely be a new series. I've been thinking about this. I will take some suggestions, but that doesn't mean that I will do any of your suggestions. But I haven't written it in stone yet. And so if you have some suggestions about what series you'd like me to jump into next, I will take that under advisement. Again, advisement doesn't mean that I actually give a shit and that I would do it. So then again, those of you who've been following me for a long time, you already know that. But so that said, also, if you do give me suggestions and I do take one, I will take one. I won't take them all. And so most people who offer suggestions will be shooting into the void. But one of you will be the lucky winner, probably, because one of you will probably come up with the series idea that I was noodling anyway. So we'll see what happens there. But as we get to the end of this thing, I did want to do this little show, just kind of fit this in here. It's kind of morality, some of morality adjacent. Maybe not quite on the nose, but it's a little bit there. And this write-up, I don't know, it's about 3,500 words, somewhere in there, which is pretty typical, actually. That's pretty short for the Summer of Morality write-ups, but it's still in the TLDR category. By the way, if you are a TLDR kind of person, I'll just save this gesture for video because I'm a writer. All right. If you don't like to read, just don't read it. I don't care if you think it's too long. You should read the Church Fathers sometimes. Yeah, they could be real windbags. That said, this write-up is kind of longish and there's a lot of stuff in it. And so if you want to know my fuller thoughts on this, I suggest you read the write-up because I will not be reading the write-up. This write-up has six subheadings. I'm basically just going to list the subheadings and say a few words about each of them, and that's going to be this entire show. So the main thing I wanted to do with this show was let you know what was going on with me, what's going on with this series that's being wrapped up very soon. The write-up is already out. I will probably post the write-up to the final series this week, even before I do the show. It'll be on the new page. And I wanted to say a few words about this supplemental that didn't really make it into the series, but it's going to kind of make it now. So the question that I've had for a while, for a long time actually, is why can't it be easy? And when I say it, I mean finding God, pleasing God, being saved, knowing the truth, all of that stuff. All that stuff that we waste hours and hours and hours debating. I say waste, I say it loosely. It's probably a pretty important debate, especially if you're stuck in a cult. You need to be having this conversation a lot. I know what it's like to be stuck in a cult, so come out. Let's get out of the cult. Let's do it today. But one of the questions that even you probably have had, if you have cult brain or have had cult brain, you know what I'm talking about, is why can't this be easier? Why do we have to jump through the hoops? Why do we have to work this hard um, to do something that is so important, so momentous, if it truly is important and momentous? Why can't it be obvious? Why can't it be easy? Um, that bothers me somewhat, you know? Um, if there was an easier way to learn how to ride a bike, every parent would teach their child the easy way. They wouldn't put training wheels on a bike and, set it up at the top of the hill and have it roll down and see how far their kid can get before they topple over and skin their knees and start crying. I mean, that's actually not all that barbaric. It's a pretty good way to learn how to ride a bike. Just get the falls over with. Momentum carries your balance. Your body learns how to balance. When the bike is moving, you don't have to do much to pedal it. And look, okay, so it sounds barbaric, but really, yeah, you can teach them how to ride that way. Don't teach your kids how to swim by throwing them in a pool of water. That's a bad way to do it. But riding a bike, yeah, there are going to be some skint knees. There are no non-skint knee methods that are any good to teach a kid how to ride a bike. And so, but skint knees are not the end of life for most kids. And they learn quickly, and they're glad that they did. And they forget about the whole knee thing, until they grow up and need knee replacements. But, by then, they will have done many things that have caused the need for that. So I wouldn't worry about that. If there was a better way to do it, if there was a better way, faster way, more efficient way to teach your kid how to ride, a way with less suffering, less heartache, you'd do it. Every parent would do it. We'd all do it, and I don't even have any kids. That would be better. If we could immunize our children from every kind of disease, and we could do it without needles, we'd do it, right? I mean, we would do it the easy way. There's no benefit. There's literally no benefit in doing anything the hard way. If there's an easier way to do it, we make up stories about the benefit of doing the hard way because we have no choice but to do it the hard way. And so we're just trying to make that meaningful somehow. So we make up these stories, it builds character, builds courage, builds endurance, builds strength. All of that is bullshit. Okay, that's just the crap we tell ourselves and the people we teach because we don't have a better way to do it and they don't have a better way to learn it. But if there was a better way, if there was an easier way, we'd do it. If you could learn self-defense without getting punched in the face a lot by a karate teacher, you'd do that. Right? I mean, if we could just jack into the Matrix and download it, then that would be the better way. It would be ridiculous to learn it the old way if we had a better way to do it. And so the same is true with Christianity. So it seems to me. We are stuck with people who are not very good communicators, not very good thinkers many times, trying to convince us about the reality of God and the fact that Jesus is God and he died to save our souls from sin. And if we don't get saved from his wrath, he's going to send us to hell. Whatever hell means depends on the person you're talking to and the time of day. And you think to yourself, so is this the best God could do? God sent you No, no, I'm not trying to cast shade on those of you who are internet evangelists who think you're winning souls for Jesus. You're not. Um, I'm just saying that Jesus would already know that someone like you giving me a message like that is utterly meaningless. It's just meaningless. It's not gonna get through. We could talk about why it's not gonna get through, but it's irrelevant. It's just not. And so the best he can do is to send you with that message, with your way of doing that message. And then I've got to listen to a lot of you, because I have listened to a lot of you, and you're all different. And so now I've not only got to endure your attempts to save my soul, I've got to try to differentiate and understand each person who attempts to save my soul, understand their message, because it's different from the last person's message. Theology is different from the last person's theology. And so I end up reading a lot more books, including the Bible, a lot more Bible, than the people who are trying to save my soul. So I'm going through that. Why can't it be easy? Where's the easy button to belief in God? Why do we need to go through this whole game show of believing in God? You don't have to believe in me. I'm here. You can accept what I'm saying or not. You have all the free will you want to. Knowing that I exist and knowing what I really think about things does not remove any of your free will. It actually enhances your free will. It gives you free will, free choice, because now you know who I am and you know what I have to say, and you can make an informed decision about what you want to do with that. But if I just left it mysterious, then you can't make an informed decision. God's hiding from you until, he's satisfied with your commitment or whatever. It does not give you free choice. The Christian's idea that if God were to manifest himself to you in a convincing way, that would remove your free choice is ridiculous. That would give us a free choice. The devils were in his presence, and they chose not to follow him, which proves that knowing God face to face does not take away our choice. So, but instead, God chooses to play this game, chooses to require faith, and so now it's hard. It's difficult. Why can't it be easy? So let's just go through this. All right, all that preamble. Let's get to these points. These are, I'm actually just going to really go through quickly. It would be too easy. So I was on a show with a friend of mine. Some of you might remember the show or remember who I'm talking about, but we were yelling back and forth as we often did. And I was saying, look, why do we have to, why in the garden? I think we were talking about the Garden of Eden at the time. You've got this poison tree and you've got this demon-inspired serpent that God created specifically with those characteristics, put him in the garden with the new people so that it would be harder. And I'm asking, why do you need to do that? If humans were able to sin on their own, they didn't need a demon. And if God wanted them to freely choose, just let them choose. Why put all of these stumbling blocks and temptations in the way? And the person I was talking to yelled back, because it would be too easy. And I'm like, what? I mean, this person really gave me a moment of silence, which is something that most people can't do on a show. So I'll never forget that, because that was a moment of clarity for me of how culty Christianity really is and how it can be, because this is a very smart person, someone that I respect a great deal, but their argument ultimately devolved into, because it would be too easy. And that just wouldn't be right. We're being offered salvation. Well, salvation from what? Because if it wasn't for all these roadblocks, there would probably be no sin. But we're being offered this great thing, and you just want it to be easy. It would be too easy. It wouldn't be worth anything, which is absurd. It's so absurd. If you grow up in a good home, your parents are not abusive, they're smart, they provide you with things, you have a nice house, maybe you have a nice house with some servants, paid servants, because we don't do slaves, and you actually have a freaking pony, okay, you're living the easy life. Guess what? You can appreciate that. You don't you don't have to live for a couple of years homeless to appreciate that you've got a good life. I wish everybody lived that life. I don't want the people living that life to come down to the life that I live, to see how the other half lives, as if it was only half of us. No, I don't. That's not the direction I want this to go. I want everybody to have a pony. I want everyone to have a white picket fence, 1.7 kids, or whatever the ideal number is. I want them to have slightly more house than they need, slightly more car than they need, slightly more swimming pool than they need. I want people to have all of that, because the world has it to offer. So I don't see why we shouldn't have it. It would be one thing if it was just some kind of unreasonable ask, but it's not. It's very much within our grasp. And so it would be a ridiculous answer to say, well, the reason that people aren't provided all of their needs and desires in this world is because then life would be too easy. What a bunch of crock. The Christian is planning to go to heaven when they die, where they will never have to lift a finger in labor for all eternity to get their needs and desires met. It can't get easier than what they're going for. So they can't possibly believe that in their own mind, that somehow, if God didn't do this game show, that it would be too easy, and that being too easy would be somehow a bad thing. So, what are some of the stumbling blocks? I mean, if I accuse God of putting stumbling blocks in the way, surely I have a few things in mind. Well, the first thing I have in mind is moral quandary. We have lots of unnecessary moral quandaries that we have to deal with in order to really get in sync with his God. You think slavery is bad. God hasn't always thought it was bad. Okay? I mention it because it's low-hanging fruit, it's easy, and it should be mentioned in every conversation when talking to a Christian. Honestly, I believe that. I think that some things you just should always mention. You should always bring up. They should always be uncomfortable because of these topics, because of these things that they believe in. Don't let up the pressure. You don't have to be a dick about it, but you should mention it. You should never let that go. You should make them live with the uncomfortability of their own cult, because that's kind of how you break cult brain. So, we believe that genocide is bad. We believe that slave wives captured from war, that would be like a war crime, and maybe you shouldn't do that, and maybe people should be freed from your harem, and maybe you shouldn't be able to sell your daughter into slavery or your son into slavery. Maybe you shouldn't be able to do that, but except the Christian God, the Jewish God, who is also the Christian God, thought that those things were okay. It doesn't matter why he thought they were okay. I don't really want to hear the excuses because I know them all, and it doesn't matter. For that time and place, it was such a barbaric time, and God couldn't do anything about those barbaric circumstances, right? Such a barbaric time. Sin, people they were sinful. Guess what? We're sinful today, right? So that doesn't make any sense. None of these excuses make any sense. So just spare me the excuses. Don't care. Honestly, don't care. So whatever reason he had for green lighting those types of things and participating in those types of things, whatever the reason, what the Christian has to wrestle with is the fact that their God thought, yeah, that seems to be okay. And what the Christian has to do is somehow get that straight in their own mind that they don't believe that. They don't believe that those things that God did were good and that they would never greenlight those things. And if they see someone else behaving that way in the world, they would condemn it, except they can't condemn it too loud because an atheist might hear them and bring up their inconsistency, which hurts their cult brain. So when I was a Christian, I can show you that I knew that slavery was bad. I'm a black man who grew up in the South, brother. No one has to tell me that all forms of slavery at all times were bad. Now, maybe if you didn't grow up in those circumstances, where people would call grown men of a certain color boy, you didn't grow up in those circumstances. Maybe you don't understand it. I understand it deep down in my bones. Slavery bad, right? Real bad. And it was always bad. I could never really convince myself that it was good at some other time for some other people, because I was too close to what it was, right? My life experience, even though I was never a slave, was shaped by that period in a way that other people's might not be. So as a Christian, that was always something that was uncomfortable, right? I knew plenty of girls and women who had been brutalized in ways that, some viewed kind of normal if you knew what was really going on inside of the homes of Christians and other people. So I could never convince myself that the way women were treated in that time was good, and the rules that God gave regarding women were good. I could never pretend that because I knew what that looked like, at a real close-up personal level. I knew that was bad. That was always bad. It was bad for anybody. It was bad for all people, for all times, no matter what. So I could never really, truly convince myself that it was okay. I may have said things to that effect, but I never really bought it. It was a kind of a fake it till you make it situation, and I never made it ultimately. There's some things that, as a modern human being, and as a human being who's lived life enough to see some of these things up close, or almost see them, be close enough to almost see them, to almost experience them, you can't pretend forever that, it was okay then. It's okay. No, it's not okay. So the moral quandary is, I've got a God who is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And I've got to say God is good all the time, and he's the source of goodness, the fount of goodness, the definition of goodness. And so much of his character exposed in the Bible is something that is not. That's a moral quandary. And at some point, you've got to be like Abraham and say, you want me to kill my kid? And you just got to decide, okay, well, I guess I'm a kid killer now, because following this God is that important. And I think it's wrong, but I'm an evil person. What do I know? I guess I'll just shut off my brain and kill this goddamn kid, because God said so. You don't have any choice, honestly. I know Christians will push back on that. Oh, no, no, no. We have options. We can do other. At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to, because you have got to justify the stories that you believe actually happened. Now, for those Christians who don't believe these things actually happened, you're off the hook. You're on a different hook, but you're off this hook. Okay. If you believe these things actually happen, then you're in a terrible moral quandary about how to follow this God. It's a huge roadblock. It's one of the biggest roadblocks discussed today in atheist and deconversion circles, because it should be. It's even a bigger roadblock than the problem of suffering and the problem of hiddenness. And those are huge. And I don't even talk about those in this write-up, okay? The problem of moral, what's a good word? God's moral lack, his moral, I don't know. Someone can help me workshop that. That's a bigger problem. Christians think that that morality is a proof of God. No, morality is a proof that God is evil. If it proves anything about God, it's a problem. It's a moral quandary that you've got to get over and say, okay, I'm going to be immoral in my own mind to serve this God. And that just seems unnecessary. That God manifests himself in such a way that will ultimately offend almost everybody in the culture at one point, that we lived long enough so that his behavior should offend most everybody in the culture, and yet those people also have to say, but God is good all the time. It's too much. It's too hard. Hard to find. I'll go much faster with these. Okay. Hard to find. I cite a passage of scripture, which I told myself I would not be reading any Bible verses during this short show, so I will not. But broad is the way, wide is the gate that leads to destruction. Some translations, hell, and many there will be who find it. But narrow is the gate. Narrow is the way that leads to righteousness, and few will be that find it. And so you can, this is one of those places where you should play some translation roulette. Look at the different translations. If there are different places in the Bible where it's written, look at those, because this can be worded very differently depending on translations, but the message is still the same. Some suggest that the path is hard to find, not just that few find it. It's hard to find. And I think that's actually the truer of the paths, of the readings, rather. The reason that few find it, notice it doesn't just say few choose it. In fact, it doesn't say that at all. It doesn't say that it's a narrow path and few choose it. It says that few find it. There's a huge difference there that Christians tend to overlook. So you've got this one path that's big and well lit, and lots of people are there, and it looks like the right path. If you're going into a city to do some commerce or to go to Carnival or whatever you're doing, you're looking for the big road with the welcome mat saying you are now in, whatever city limits. And so there's a road and a big wide gate where you can get your horses and your carts, all your belongings through the gate, and that looks like the right gate. Of course you would go through that gate. If you saw some dirt road that kind of bent into, in invisibility, where you can't see around a corner, and it looks overgrown and it's rocky. And sorry about that. I reached the maximum limit of the recording that I can do with the app that I'm using now. So apologies. So you're going through the gate. You look around. You see in this narrow, overgrown path, there's a little bitty what maybe looked like it once was a gate. No one is going to say, let me get my machete and cut through there and see if I can find the path and get through the gate. That no one's going to do that. Everybody going into a city is looking for the big gate saying, welcome to City Center. Have a great time, do great business. But God has made it very difficult for some reason. That's what you would expect from the kingdom, this big, wide, welcoming gate that says, take your ease, all you who enter here. But instead, what the sign says in a different language that you can't read is, abandon all hope, all ye who enter here. You know what the path is that you should have taken? You should have taken the overgrown dirt road that was dark and full of monsters. That's the one that you're supposed to take. That's the good gate. If you think about this analogy that's being used by Jesus here, that's what he's saying. You take the path, if you can find it at all, that looks dark and foreboding and hard to get through. Take that one. Ignore the one that looks like it should be the gate to the kingdom. When you get to the pearly gates of heaven, what do you think those gates are going to look like? How do you imagine that gate looks? It's got to be big and extravagant. There will be marching bands. There are going to be elephant ears and all kinds of pastries and this atmosphere of joy and, random cheering breaking out and singing and all that. That would be the good gate then. But here, the thing that looks like that is the gate to hell, because that's how God wanted it to look. Yeah, Jesus says, I'm going to do this really nice gate. Everybody's going to want to go down it. Suckers. He's going to make the right gate really hard to find. And if you do find it, it'll be really unappealing. That's making it hard for no good reason. All right, faster. Hard to understand. Oops. I was supposed to move that. Hard to understand. Okay. So why did Jesus use parables? Growing up, I used to hear people say, he wanted to make it easy for people to understand. In fact, you can go online and look up some sermons and internet apologists saying that sort of thing and giving, reasonable answers to why Jesus used parables, and they just kind of ignore what he actually said in plain language. And what he said when his disciples said, why you use these hard to understand stories? And Jesus says, he doesn't say they're not hard to understand. That's not what he says. You're just hard-hearted. Nope, he doesn't say that. You're just stupid. You should have stayed in school. Nope, he doesn't say that. He says the reason I use parables is because you, apostles, I'm going to explain them to you because you have the right to understand them. But to everybody else, they won't understand them. I don't want them to understand them. I want you to understand. So that's why I did it. It was to exclude the masses. It wasn't to include them. It wasn't to help them. Christians have a really hard time. They have a really hard struggle trying to justify the words of Jesus with something that makes a lot more modern sense and more sense with their modern theology. And they can't ultimately do it. The parables, by the way, just ignore everything I said about why Jesus used parables. In fact, ignore everything he said about why he used parables, which you do already. And just read the parables. Go ahead, read them. When I wrote a book of red letters, I didn't use any parables. You know why? Because I don't understand what the parables mean, and neither do you. And that's just how Jesus wanted it. So I didn't see any real point talking about it, although I've toyed with doing a second volume, just doing parables. But I think I would like to do that one maybe in conjunction with someone else. At least someone who thinks that they understand parables, but it's silly. It's a bunch of code, and you don't have the decoder key. That's really all there is to it. If the apostles had not had it explained to them, they wouldn't have understood. And these are the people that lived with Jesus and walked with Jesus. These are the people that Jesus liked. These are the people that Jesus enabled to raise the freaking dead. And they didn't understand what the heck he was talking about when he spoke in these parables. You don't either. So it's just an example of him making it difficult. Paul suggests in 1 Corinthians, I said I wouldn't read Bible verses. Is quoting them from memory the same as reading them? Anyway, Paul suggested that spiritual things cannot be discerned, cannot be understood by unspiritual people. You have to be a spiritual person who knows the mind of God to understand these spiritual things, is what Paul says. And more that I include in the write-up. I kind of have to mention this one. 2 Peter, blah, blah, blah. The fool pretending to be Peter, writing this, says of Paul's writings that some of his writings are hard to understand. Now, he quickly glosses over that by saying, and many people who are, evil, nasty people twist Paul's words to their own destruction. Great. You can leave that other part out. That's not going to make it better, what you just acknowledged, that Paul's writings are hard to understand. And this is supposed to be Peter, who walked with Jesus. Paul never met that guy. Okay, visions aside, Paul is writing things that supposedly Peter is saying, and some of that's pretty tough to get through, tough to understand. Compound that problem by the fact that most of the New Testament books are attributed to Paul's writing. And that means that the revelation of Jesus in person and in writing is hard to understand. According to the book itself, according to the man, it's hard to understand. Why? Why does it need to be hard to understand? The Holy Spirit, surely, when Paul was writing, could have tapped Paul on the shoulder and said, in whatever way the Holy Spirit communicates, hey, buddy, this is hard to understand. Even I don't know what you're on about in half of this, okay? Go easy on the hashish. Could have used a bit of editing. That's all I'm saying. Hard to find, hard to understand. Against our nature. I'll be very brief with this. Adam and Eve, they go in the garden, they do their thing, they sin, and something changes. But it's not just something, it's everything. Before we supposedly had some kind of neutral nature, and now we have a sin nature. There's not a neutral human nature anymore where you can make free choices about things. It's a sin nature where you are predisposed to love evil, where no one seeks good. That's our nature. That's the nature that you were born with. That God didn't have to do that. He could have given every individual as free a nature as Adam and Eve, and as we can see, he didn't really give them a free choice either. We have a worse one than they do, though, because not only do we have Satan, who God decided, I'm going to make you God of this world. So we not only have that to deal with, but we also have a sin nature. Talk to the theological Phil Bros about that. So it was already hard enough to be impossible, and God said, yeah, let's make it harder. Everybody who's born gets a sin nature now. You get a sin nature, and you get a sin nature, and you get a sin nature. All right. Conclusion. You know what? I'm going to save the conclusion completely for the write-up, so I suggest you read it. And that's all I have to say about that. Why can't it be easy? Let's have some good discussion about that in the comments in the new page that is going to be entitled something like Summer of Morality Finale. And I will post the write-up in the comments there as well. I will post the show write-up at some point this week, and we will actually do the show and the season wrap-up sometime after that. You know what to do. skepticsandseekers.squarespace.com. Log into your Discuss account, discuss away, send me an email, skepticsandseekers@gmail.com. Until next time, I will see you in the comments, and in the meantime, I'm out. I'm out.